Velkommen til APPETIZE Podcast.
Hej og velkommen til APPETIZE Podcast. Dejligt, du har lyst til at lytte eller se med. Jeg har besøg af Sebastian, eller vi har besøg af hinanden. Sebastian sidder i New York, og du kender Sebastian fra den artikel, som gjorde, at Aalborg kom på verdenskortet. Lige pludselig blev en del af New York Times, og vi alle sammen havde armen op over hovedet i begejstring af, wow, hold da op, vi er lige pludselig en attraktiv by. Selve snakken kommer selvfølgelig til at foregå på engelsk, så nu må du lige bære over med mit engelsk, fordi nu kører vi engelsk. Hi Sebastian, nice that you want to be a part of this.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So you are in New York right now.
I am, yes.
You are in your apartment?
Yep. My world is very small all of a sudden. Yeah.
It's so confusing how things has changed. You used to travel a lot. Like you're a journalist and you work for New York Times as a freelance, or?
Yeah. So now I'm just a freelance journalist. Mostly write about travel, but last year I had a very special and kind of crazy job as the New York Times 52 places traveler, which meant that my job was, the New York Times has a list that they put out every year of the 52 places to go all over the world. And my job was to go to all 52 of those places. So I spent a week in each place. And one of them was Aalborg. So I was there almost, around this time last year, in May of last year.
Yeah, cool. So the New York Times had already pointed out that you had to go visit the city before that you went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't even, when I got the job, I didn't even know where I was going to be going.
No.
I just knew I was going to be the 52 places traveler. And then a week later, they gave me the list. And then we started mapping out the route and planning. And then I was on the road for a year. And then I got back, and a month later, it was time to self-isolate and quarantine and social distance and all these words that I hadn't even thought of for a year. So it was quite the change. And now I'm, New York, which is the epicenter of everything now. So.
Yeah. But it's quite a contrast from what you spending like so many weeks on the go last year. So you went basically around the world, right? If anyone out there follow you on Instagram, they can quite see some pictures. Like you've been like...
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I'm also, you can see my articles on the New York Times. But yeah, so I went every week to a different place. Like I said, I think I did some numbers. I think the total was 88 flights that I took. I went the equivalent of almost 5 times around the planet on a plane. I drove the equivalent of, I think, 3 or 4 times across the United States. So I was on the move for a full year every day. It was exhausting, but it was obviously incredible too. To every continent except Antarctica, but I got close to Antarctica because I went to Falkland Islands as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must have been really amazing. I can just imagine, like, seeing the world is amazing by itself, and then also having it combined with a job that you actually get paid for traveling. Like, it sounds like a dream job to me.
It is, but it was also, I should say, it wasn't always easy, right? Because it wasn't just traveling. I was also, writing an article every week. I was on deadline every week. I was taking all my photos. I was doing video, social media, all of that. So it's intense job.
Tough,
I think a lot of people hear about it and they're like, wow, amazing, free ticket around the world. It's like, yes, it was incredible. But it was also tough sometimes.
Yeah. But one thing is to decide, first of all, where to go yourself, like to decide of, I want to go to see that destination. I look forward to see this and this. And then the whole fact about planning it and having these months or weeks that you actually look forward to go somewhere is actually, I think for most of us, half the experience or the adventure is that you're looking forward to do something or go somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just, because of my schedule, I wasn't able to plan much. The best I could hope for was maybe like reading a few articles on the plane over, because I was so busy with the place before, it was all back to. So I think it taught me some new things about travel. I learned to really just figure it out as I go. I think that led to some of my best experiences, like for example, I landed with knowing nothing about Aalborg, no plans. And then like a friend of a friend of a friend introduced me to somebody, and like that introduced me to other things. And next thing I know, my schedule was busy, and I was, learning something every day.
Yeah. So you basically landed in Aalborg Lufthavn and was like picked up by someone you didn't know and were just brought around, or?
Flew into Copenhagen. I spent a night there, and then I took a train to Aalborg. I had a little Airbnb that I rented. That was like one of those little, very small houses by the church. I don't know.
Yeah. One of these Hjelmersstræde, perhaps, or something.
Yeah.
These tiny doll houses.
Yeah. And then like within a couple of days, I heard from a friend of mine who's Danish, said, "Oh, my mother's friend lives in Aalborg. If you want to meet her." And then I met her, and then, the next thing I knew, I was like exploring Cold War bunkers and getting inducted into the Christian IV Guild and all that stuff, so it was like things that I could never have planned for. And then that was one of my biggest lessons from the year was sometimes I think when we're traveling on our own, especially if you're using your own money and you're using your vacation days, you want to make sure everything goes perfectly. So sometimes I think we tend to overplan. We're like, I know where I'm going to have every meal. I'm going to go to this museum on this day. And that doesn't leave space for like the unexpected, for serendipity. And I think one of the best things about travel is when the unexpected happens. And I think I learned to like really embrace that and just be okay with landing and being like, I have no idea what I'm doing, because next thing I know, I'm meeting someone or I'm stumbling upon some restaurant I never even read about. And
exactly.
So I think I was probably on one extreme of like not planning at all, and the other extreme is over planning. I think the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle, probably.
But I think exactly the point of land somewhere and just be like, okay, here I am. What do I see, smell, and hear around me, instead of this overplanned as so many of us exactly do when we go anywhere, because we don't want to miss out, and we are all suffering from this FOMO, and we just overdo it, as you say. So it
also,
does.
I think if you're over planning, you're usually depending on what already exists online. So you're looking at lists from other tourists and stuff, and then you're not really discovering anything new. You're doing what everyone else has done before you. I had somebody working for me in New York at the time who would give me some research before I landed. Like, these are the top attractions. These are some of the best restaurants. But sometimes I would use that guide as like a guide of what not to do.
Exactly.
It's already been done. I need to go find something else to write about that's a news story.
Exactly.
So it was it changed my mind a bit about travel and my approach to travel.
Yeah. I can also imagine that you must, I don't know which number Aalborg was among all these that you had to visit, but I can also imagine that at some point you get like filled up with impressions. And it's kind of like you can't suck more in, because it's kind of over, another church, another museum, another ocean, another beach, another, I don't know. So at some point you also get like till here, and it's like, so what's so special about this? And then I think most of us, we start looking for the failures, or we start looking for what's not beautiful, because we kind of want to see what's changed, or not what's changed, but what's different from any other city or any other country. And then I've heard that you were kind of fond of our Fjordbyen, this little Christiania wannabe thing we have along the seaside. What amazed you about that part?
It just felt very, I think I walked there from like downtown, from central Aalborg, and like the contrast you go through, you see a lot of like the old industrial Aalborg, I think, old factories. Then all of a sudden there's this like little fairy tale community on the water. And it's just very, I don't know, from someone from even just from the US, it's like a very foreign concept to have that within a city, I think. Have this different philosophy too. When I was talking to the people who live there about how it was all about helping each other, if someone couldn't afford rent one month or something, the other people will pitch in to help out, and just like it's very admirable, I think, to have that existing within another city. That's not a very big city either, so I don't know. I thought it was fascinating, and like how each house was like its own individual expression, and it was like that.
Yeah, and some say that it's not just a certain type that has a house there, because it can be everyone. It can be like a big business person as well as someone who is basically homeless, who kind of are neighbors.
And I thought that was very interesting too, because I think you would see that, and at least my first assumption would be like, okay, it's just like a bunch of hippies who, who have hung out there. But to see that it's like a different patchwork of society, I think that's very interesting.
Mm. And I like the whole fact, exactly like you say, you can see the whole change of Aalborg from the old industry and this whole rough working community. And then you go basically back to the basic, where people started helping each other out as another village, like another where we're nothing if we're just something because we're with each other here or doing something.
And I've been thinking about communities like that a lot, obviously now in the middle of this crisis. I wonder how these like tight-knit communities are coping and how they're probably helping each other. And it just, I don't know, the world that I saw last year feels so far away from what we're in now, obviously. Yeah. I mean, just walking around like Fjordbyen, just meeting people, shaking hands, like it was like no problem.
Talking and everything,
yeah.
It's so strange now. So how is it, like, how is New York right now? And like, now you're back and you can't travel, and you probably, although that you were, of course, filled up and were like, okay, it's nice to be back and also be a bit settled. Now you're for sure really settled. Like now you can't even choose to go somewhere if you want to.
Yeah, like I said, it's very, very strange. I got back to New York around the end of December. And then I basically had 2 months of being in the city, seeing old friends, all of that. And then it was like I said goodbye to everyone again, because now I'm just in my apartment. I'll go, as you know, the situation here has been very bad. I think it's getting a little better. But it's still strange. I mean, I can ride my bicycle right through Times Square and it's just empty, which I would never do in New York before this. But I go for a walk every day. I go on a bike ride when the weather's nice. But yeah, it's very strange. It's eerie, and it's hard to imagine what life was like before and us going back to it. Now, you walk by somebody on the sidewalk now and you're like going like this to avoid each other. And this is a city in New York where everyone was on top of each other all the time, right?
And bumping into each other, and most space was used like
last weekend my partner and I went for a bike ride through Manhattan, and to be able to just ride down the middle of 7th Avenue in Times Square, like I would never.
Yeah.
I would never.
It sounds like a movie. It sounds like some crazy movie, like exactly that you can imagine that you can actually bike on Times Square.
Sometimes it's very like peaceful, like you hear more birds, there are less people on the streets, which is nice sometimes, but then you just get hit with a reminder, like I live up in Harlem in Upper Manhattan, so when I go for like a bike ride for exercise, I go down to Central Park and I can do like a few laps of Central Park. And it's really nice because there's like not a lot of people, whatever. But then you pass like a tent hospital in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
And it's just like this
reminder. It hits you that it's really, it's not just a vacation fun game. It's actually reality,
it's not
right?
That's happening to other people. It's right in front of you, And like the sound of ambulances. I'm surprised we haven't heard one now, but the ambulances are nonstop.
Yeah.
The best part of the day though is 7 p.m. when everybody goes outside and they cheer for the healthcare workers and clap. And
oh, you have that as a tradition?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Every day at 7 o'clock.
Every day at 7. That means people meet in their windows, balconies, on the ground, whatever. And what are you doing? Clapping, screaming?
They're cheering, they're clapping. Some people have like stereos and they're playing music, or there's people who have drums, and
nice.
People who are driving are honking their horns, and it's just like it starts at 7, it ends at 7:05, and it's back to silence. It's really nice. Like
it's the
only reminder it's the only reminder that we're together, honestly, because otherwise I interact with my partner in my apartment, and then that's it. right?
Yeah.
So it's just like a little reminder that your neighbors are all going through this too.
Yeah, we're actually in this together, although that we're all really far apart from each other because we are literally...
Yeah, and I will say too, I don't want to jump ahead in case you're going to ask about this, but I was going through something where when this first started, it felt like a lot of the memories that I made last year were like gone, like we're turning into dreams because it just felt so far away from what I was experiencing this year. So actually I wrote an article for the New York Times last week, I think it was last week, in which I went and I reconnected with a lot of the people that I met last year, including the friends I made in Aalborg, just to see what their lives were like.
Yeah.
And it was really nice because one, it showed me that we're all going through this in some way, right? Whether it's extreme or not, life has changed from everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean, Siberia. Talk to friends who I made in Siberia, like you can't get any farther away than that.
No, it's really far away.
They're going through it too.
Yeah.
But also it was just, it made me realize how important being connected to the rest of the world is, because I'm scared, being someone who loves traveling and who always doesn't really I don't feel at home anywhere. I'm scared that having now retreated into our little, pods and isolated ourselves, I'm worried that we won't ever come back out again. But I think connecting with the people that I met around the world showed me that how important those connections are across cultures, across borders. I think that's what's going to get us out of this mess as well, is cooperating like that.
Certainly, just the fact that we share the experience and the situation, that we don't feel lonely or lonely by sitting in our different little apartments or whatever people live in.
Yeah, just to be like, this is really a crazy time because it's affecting everyone. So I hope that we come out of this with maybe a greater sense of belonging or solidarity or whatever you want to call it, because for the first time, there's something that we can all say, yeah, I remember that, For
sure, we really have a common thread right now. There's something we really all never will ever remember. It will be like world history of something. It won't just be do you remember Second World War? It's like not just the finance crisis anymore. It's like 2020, where everyone was like, oh, it's going to be an amazing year. I don't think anyone have seen this coming for sure. Well, not like seen, but there are theories, of course. But how is it? Like you said, you don't go out. So do you go buy grocery and everything, or do you guys as well? Like here in Denmark, most people have like this takeaway that things are brought in front of their door because more and more people get like anxious to go out.
Yeah, I think more people are doing that too. I think, but it's also hard, because so many people are trying to order online. So if you try to make an order, I mean, like even just like alcohol, for example,
7,000 in line.
Yeah, if I want to stock up on wine, get some wine delivered or something, I have to plan like 2 weeks in advance because that's how long it'll take to show up. And you don't want to run out of wine, right?
No, exactly.
But but no, we've been going to the grocery store. We wear a mask when we do. They make people line up outside, and they only let in a certain number of people at a time. So it just takes a much longer time than it used to. Like I said, we can go. It isn't like it was in Italy or Spain where you can't even be outside at all. Like we're still allowed to be outside. I think the only time you can get a fine is if you're playing sports in the park with other people or having a big gathering of people, then you can get in trouble. But if you're by yourself or you're with your family or whatever and you're keeping distance, it's okay. Which I'm kind of glad for, because I people in New York, we live in shoe boxes, right? These are tiny little apartments.
Exactly, yeah.
Stay inside for months, and like I think everyone would go totally insane.
Yeah, go nuts, exactly. How is the whole, not to talk too much political and everything, but how is the whole Trump and the whole way he's been doing it, and how are you guys coping with it, or how are the New Yorker taking this, or?
Well, I think it depends who you ask, but I think New Yorkers, at least for now, have a lot more faith in their governor, Andrew Cuomo, than they do the president. And thankfully, decisions like that are being made around opening up the economy and stuff, those are decisions that the governors make, not as much
Trump.
as the White House says what he says. It comes down to the governors. I think it's scary to watch what's happening in some other parts of the country with people out protesting and whatever else. I think it just goes to show how powerful misinformation is and lying, and how quickly it can spread through the internet or whatever else, and conspiracy theories and whatever else you want to call it. I think it's really irresponsible, and it's disrespectful too to the people who are on the front lines, who are working in the hospitals, who have to go to work and are putting their life in danger for us, right?
Exactly, yeah. And someone just playing around with it, making a
exactly.
game out of it.
It's like, I'm sorry you can't make your hair appointment while these people who are working, 16-hour days in the hospital. And I think I mean, there's so much you could parse out of it. Like, at least in New York, I think the vast majority of the people who are working in the hospitals, who are working in grocery stores, who are working on the subway, whatever else, are people of color as well. They're Black, they're Latino. Look at the people protesting, they're not. So there's a disconnect there, obviously, too.
Yeah.
Like, must be nice to have the privilege to be able to go out and protest in your car when people who are doing the work are, Anyway, I could go on and on about it, but it's a big country with a lot of different ideas and a lot of different opinions.
Yeah. So how has there been any protests or demonstrations in New York, or?
I've heard a few, but I haven't seen any. And I think it's also important to remember, like, when you do see these protests, which have made the news because I think of how ridiculous they are, you're talking about a couple of hundred people in a state of millions and millions, right?
Yeah.
It's important to keep that in perspective. There's always going to be people on the fringes who are doing things that won't to any sane person seem insane. So yeah, it's important. Like, I haven't come across. I think if you ask an average New Yorker, they would say, "No, it sucks. I've lost my job, whatever else. But I'm staying at home until it's safe for me, my kids, or my parents to be outside."
Yeah. How is it with parents and schooling and everything? Schools has been closed and shut down as well, right?
Schools have been closed.
Yeah. Are they opening again? We opened last week in Denmark here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The schools and.
No, I think in most states that I know of, at least, they've already said they're keeping them closed for the rest of the semester, which ends in May. So, I can't imagine it, honestly. I mean, I don't have kids, but I have friends who do, and to balance working from home with kids. Do you have kids?
No, I don't have kids, no. But I've heard about exactly those who have, like, smaller kids running around and screaming and have to focus and concentrate on doing your job while being a parent, or helping them teach them math or whatever that they're supposed to learn as well.
I have a cat, and that's hard enough sometimes.
I have a dog, and she barks all the time.
But I think schools will stay closed. Even now, like, a lot of parents depended on, like, summer camps and things like that for their kids when the summer starts. And I think a lot of them have closed too already. They're saying they're not going to open. So I mean, it's been now, we were late, obviously, if you've been reading the news. US
you were a bit later than we were here. Denmark shut down already, I think, on the 11th of March. Our statsminister was saying that schools were closed from Monday, and basically Denmark shut down every step by step from then. And on a Saturday, I think it was the 14th of March, the border closed. It was really fast.
We could learn from the Danish, but I think it was around the 15th of March when, like, they started, like, recommending people to social distance and stuff. So it's been, a month and a little more that I've been self-isolating, because as soon as they even recommended it, I started doing it.
You started doing it, okay.
Yeah, now it's I think the last time I, like, hung out with friends was like March 11th or something.
Yeah, I was literally in a birthday. My brother had birthday on the 11th of March. That's why I remember it so clear, because we all sat together, family, and were celebrating him. And suddenly we heard that there was this announcement, and the entire, like, we were all happily cheering and talking. We all sat like as there was a bomb in the middle of the room. It was like, and we were like, as we were supposed to say goodbye, we were like, oh, so I hugged you while coming, but am I supposed to hug you now by leaving you? It was so strange. It was so weird. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
It's one moment to the next.
Yeah, it was like,
changed,
whoa.
right?
And this exactly as you described it before, that you meet someone on the street and you literally walk really far away from each other. It's like everyone has become your enemy. It's like you don't know what to fear, so you're kind of fearing everything. And I think a lot are already anxious about what will be the erection of this when we are supposed to come out in society again. Will we ever hug
but there's
again?
There's an interesting flip side to all that too, because another thing I've noticed, at least in New York, is when I go out for walks and stuff. I mean, in the past, it's New York. Nobody even pays attention to you, right? If you're walking, it's like you're in background.
Whatever, go out my way.
Now I've noticed people will like nod and smile and say hello to each other, which is like would never happen with like a small town or something, you know. And I think it's because people are so like starved for social interaction that anyone they see, they're like, hello.
Oh, it's a human being. It's alive. Yeah, I think so too. We see that here as well. And I think it's just because, like you and I right now, looking at each other and a scream, it's like we miss this hugging and touching. It's so weird. It's just like, everything is like 2D. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
So as you just said, we're starving from the social interaction. So how do you think, like, your job from now on? Like, you used to travel a lot and do recommendations and what's it called, like saying, go there, see this, and so what from now? What do you think?
It's a difficult time for travel journalists, as you can imagine. I don't know. I'm taking a break for now. I mean, I'm doing a few different articles here and there, but most of them are about kind of the end of travel. So it feels like I'm writing for my own funeral, kind of, you know? So that's strange, but I'm working on some other things. I started seeing about, you know, I'm in the very early stages of maybe working on a book about my year of travel and everything else.
Nice. Yeah, great idea.
A lot of stories that never made it into the New York Times. A lot of things I want to re-examine and revisit, but it's very early, so it's, you know, I'm just to see what it would look like.
How about also what you said before, the contrast about what the different places that you visit are like now, like just a year after, because of the corona, could also be interesting to like sum up and see. So you used to be able to experience all this, but right now the beauty has come out in a different way. Like, as I don't know if you heard, but like you said before, you can even hear the birds sing now. We have here in Europe this, you can actually see dolphins in Venezia, and you can hear the birds in Paris. And so people are coming out with these, there's beauty from nature just in front of us right now, because we finally don't overproduce whatever. So we actually have back to scratch again.
Gave the planet a minute to catch its breath or something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's still stories to tell. I think, you know, there's ways. I joke about, you know, travel writing being over, but in some ways, I think it's important to keep telling the stories that we do have, because it's, like I said earlier, it's kind of what makes us still feel connected to the rest of the world, and I think that's important. I think, you know, there's people all over the world, right? Not just in the US, but you do hear it in the US as well, who are saying like, it's the fact that we were so connected to each other that got us into this mess in the first place. It's because of global commerce and globalization, and we shouldn't be so dependent on each other, blah, blah, blah. But I think more true than that, it's, like I said earlier, it's that interconnectedness that's going to get us out of this mess as well. We need each other. We can't do this in isolation. There's places like the US that are going to try to, and I think it shows that it doesn't work. So I think there is a role for travel writing in now and in the future, and that is like making sure we all still remember what it's like to be connected.
Exactly. But also talking about traveling, there's something about moving around physically and see something, and also this mentally traveling. Like you've actually, you just said before, we are kind of traveling because you're reflecting about your life and your relations, and who do you miss and what do you miss and what was important before, and what do you definitely need to have back in your life, and what's maybe just supposed to be thrown out. And this whole travel time right now where we sit still gives us the opportunity to reflect more and actually see within what we want to fill our lives up with.
Like what about travel are you missing right now? Is it really just sitting on a beach with a cocktail, or is it something more profound than that? And is that going to change the way you travel in the future? I think there's a lot of interesting questions that it brings up with having all this time to really think about it, right?
Exactly. I think so too. Sebastian, our time is unfortunately up. It has been such an amazing time with you. I would love to just continue. I have like 1,000 questions about, so what is the different activities in New York and whatever, but we have to wrap it up. But thank you so much for your time and your advices and experience and thoughts, and especially the insight about that you can actually bike on. What did you say? It's so crazy. It really sounds like a horror movie for me. But you take care, and I will keep following you on Instagram, and keep on reading your articles and whatever. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I know from everyone in Aalborg that they're so thankful for your amazing job last year here, which really brought the world to see our little city. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope it wasn't like too many Americans showing up all of a sudden afterwards. But because it's funny actually. I met somebody at a conference. Sorry, we'll wrap about that. I met someone earlier this year at a conference from like the tourism board of Denmark.
Yeah.
And she told. I mean, I didn't realize that my articles were having this effect, but she told me that there really was like a significant percentage increase after that article.
Yeah.
So I hope all people in Aalborg are happy about that and not mad about all these.
They are so happy about it. I think the most are like, especially in the tourism area, they're so thankful because it meant like a lot. So on behalf of them, I'm thanking you. Maybe on behalf of others, I'm not supposed to thank you. But from APPETIZE, which I'm representing right now, they are for sure happy about it. So thank you for your time, and take care.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Du har lyttet til APPETIZE Podcast, der ligesom magasinet APPETIZE udgives af reklamebureauet Kreative. Husk, at du kan læse meget mere på appetize.dk og de sociale medier. Tak fordi du lyttede med.